Thank you guys for joining us for our December monthly support call. We did skip October, November, so we apologize for that, but October was our walk, and I just want to touch on how incredible it was. I think this year was just so special, and just the additions of walking around with the candlelight and just creating that wave of light for our community, just the people that showed up. Sorry, my cat. I just felt like it was just such a beautiful day. And the balloons release, we have such beautiful pictures that we'll be posting so that you guys can see if you weren't able to make it, or if you were there might be pictures of you and your loved ones. So thank you if you guys came out. We're so excited to do it again next year like we always do, and keep some of those really special traditions that we started this year. And we had hoped to get kind of this video out in before Thanksgiving. Today, we're going to talk about just how to get through the holidays with your grief. After loss, whether it's a new loss, it's been years, you carry that with you all the time. It's just part of you. It's who you are. You just carry that grief. But how do you, when it's so fresh and new, how do you go and try to be joyous on a day and everybody wants you to show up your best, and not come with your grief? Like, could you just leave that grief behind and show up so that we can have a wonderful, joyful day? So we're just gonna kind of give you some tips. Angie found this great article that we're kind of going to go through and just give you ideas of how maybe in this next week through the holidays that start, how you can be gentle on yourself. So first we'll just start with introductions. So go ahead, Angie, and you can just introduce yourself to everyone.
Sure. So I'm Angie Shelton. I am a perinatal mental health certified mental health counselor. I specialize in reproductive and perinatal mental health. More importantly than all of like the credentials, is that I am a lost mom. I have two babies who I lost about 17 and 18 years ago. And so so I'm here to kind of represent them and share my own experiences, share some of my more formal knowledge, and just support the community.
Yeah, thank you, Angie. I'm Rachel. I'm on the board of Share of Lancaster, and I am a lost mom. I have two daughters that passed. My first daughter, Audrey, is about 7 years ago that she passed away. And my son is actually a twin, and his sister passed away during the pregnancy. So this is just for Angie and I, Share is just so important and so dear to us that we want to give back to our community. And these videos, we hope, are just these little bits of love and support and light that we can just kind of put into your life and make life just even an ounce more gentle on you, because it is just almost impossible to get through life with this kind of grief without support and love. So talking about the holidays, even though the first holiday that hit after my loss was not Thanksgiving or Christmas, it was randomly just 4th of July, but it was the first time I was with a group of people. And it was the first time anyone was going to acknowledge what I had just gone through with my loss. So you get that first comment of, "I'm so sorry about your loss." And in one way, you want that acknowledgement, but it opens you up, right? So I spent that whole day just in bed during this joyous, fun, everybody's outside doing their thing, in bed, just kind of curled up, heartbroken and crying and just missing my daughter so much. So there's a fine balance there. And I think when you go into it, you don't want people to ignore it, right? You don't want to walk in and everybody just pretend everything's fine and let's just move on and pretend it never happened, because they're trying to spare you that grief. But at the same time, as soon as it is acknowledged, it's raw and it's right there and it's ready to come out. So hopefully we can kind of help you figure out maybe what those steps can be. And that it's okay if you don't want to be involved in any kind of group of people this holiday. If you just want to stay home and take care of yourself and have a gentle day, peaceful day where you're just not ready for it, just start there. Just to really, you deserve whatever kind of break, peace, or go with your grief. Carry it with you. Let it be raw. Let all your emotions come out. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel. And I feel like the most important thing is just to be yourself and be genuine to your emotions and your feelings and to honor that however you feel fit. So Angie, if you could you kind of take us through this article that you found? We'll also be putting a link in the video so that you guys have this as a reference, but kind of take us through what we can do during the holidays to kind of survive these joyous days with such a
Mhm.
grief that we carry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love what you just said. And I want to like kind of pull out like two things that you just said that I think is like super important before we even get into the article to think about. And the first thing is that you might not know what you're feeling. So you might feel multiple things. You might want to be with people and you don't want to be with people. You want them to remember your baby and talk about your baby, but you don't want to talk about it with anybody at that moment. So we call this dialectical thinking, and that means that there can be multiple things that are true at the same time. And so embracing that you might not know what you need and you have needs, that can be true all at the same time during the holidays. So acknowledging that, being aware of that, accepting that is like something really important before we even get into the points that the article shares with us.
Yeah.
The second thing is to remember that you are bringing that grief with you. So remembering that it's not just you and your happy self and your holiday self like coming to these events. You are going to be complex. You're going to have a more complex experience. And you will be coming as a whole person, meaning all of the things that are going on with you are coming to any celebration that you're going to. And you being aware of that is really important. Checking in with yourself, being mindful about where am I right now? Because really, your mood and your ability to handle the kind of interactions that happen at the holidays can really change the way that the clouds flow through the sky. It's really going to depend on what am I feeling right now.
Yeah.
And so checking in with yourself, checking in to make sure that you are where you are at this moment, and just being aware, practicing mindfulness is going to be really important for you.
Mhm.
So the article that I wanted to share comes from a blog called What's Your Grief? And the title of the article is Seven Ways to Go Easy on Yourself While Grieving at the Holidays. So I like this article. It has some really good tips and information in it that really kind of distills down how to care for yourself during this time of year. So the first point that the article makes is that perfection is not needed.
Mhm.
There's a lot of times around the holidays that we have this ideal vision of like what a holiday is supposed to be like. And
Mhm.
there are times after the loss of the baby that we are not only grieving that there should have been a baby, a new baby here, possibly, or a pregnancy should have progressed during this holiday. We might have had a vision of like what this holiday was going to look like, what this Hanukkah might be like for us.
Mhm.
And if that vision is interrupted, we can feel real feelings of grief. And that's added to the normal perfectionism that we often have on holidays, that the decorations have to be perfect, the meal has to be perfect, the children have to have perfect gifts. There's like that we have this pressure of perfection around holidays, which is one of the reasons why the holidays are such a time of depression and sadness, because we're comparing what real life is like compared to this vision of perfection that we have in our mind. So I think that giving ourselves permission to say, this holiday does not have to be perfect. We can let go of those expectations of, being the perfect homemaker, creating the perfectly wrapped gifts, the homemade, cookies and pies and everything like that. Those kinds of expectations that we might put on ourselves, we can give ourselves permission, understanding that, yes, I feel like those things are important, and this might not be the year to strive for that thing.
Yeah.
So letting go of the vision of perfection and focusing on instead on like, what are the basics? What are
Yeah.
the basic things that are most important to me?
Yeah.
Like that's uh, a good place to be. And that actually brings us into the second point of this article, which is to be intentional in the things that you do,
Mm.
and then also to be flexible in the things that you do. So every family has traditions. Every family has things that we expect every year. It's one of the reasons why we embrace the holidays so much, because there are things that are meaningful to us that happen at that time.
Mm.
So traditions can give us comfort. They can give us a feeling of continuity, that things are continuing, that ritual helps to bind us together with the people who are a part of the ritual.
Mhm.
But the ritual itself might be something that feels like it's not achievable this year. And
Mm.
that's okay, because all of these traditions that we have, they're actually based on something that's more important. So if we think of like, well, every year we go to cut down the Christmas tree and, we do hot cocoa and it's like this day long thing that we do, but you're feeling that you just can't get out of bed, that's okay. Because remember that underneath of that tradition, underneath of that ritual is the idea of family togetherness, of
Mm.
being together and valuing one another. So
Mhm.
maybe what we do is we look a little deeper at our tradition and we figure out like, what is the core of that tradition? And is there a way that I can still do that without having to maybe do the whole tradition? So
Mm.
maybe instead of cutting down the Christmas tree this year, because you just don't have the energy for
Mhm.
that, maybe this year you buy a tree at the lot and you sit down together and have hot cocoa at home this year. And you're still getting that experience of being together, getting the tree, but it isn't as much of a production as it might be otherwise. Might be a way to be a little bit more gentle on yourself this year when you need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing, point three of this article, is to practice saying no to things.
Yeah.
There's so much that gets stuffed in to this holiday season. So many like parties and get-togethers and meals and giving and volunteering and school events and on and on and on. All
Yeah.
of these things happen at this time of year. And in a year when we feel really good, that can be stressful and
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
In a, in a year when we are freshly grieving, it can be impossible. So
Yeah.
this may be the year when you say, thank you for thinking of me, but I'm not available to do that this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and just saying no to things that are just too much.
Yeah.
And you'll know. I mean, we know when we feel like we get an invitation to something and it just feels like, oh no, and you feel an obligation, but you don't feel the joy that
Mhm.
goes along with that thing that maybe normally it is joyful for you.
Yeah.
But it's okay to say no this year.
Yeah.
You're not a failure. You're not, um, you know, you're honoring yourself. And even
Yeah.
if other people may be disappointed, it's true, people may be disappointed, they can survive their disappointment
Yeah.
while you are honoring your grief. It's
Yeah.
okay. They will, continue. And it's very possible that next year you're going to feel better and you're going to be excited and ready to do that thing again.
Yeah.
So give yourself permission to say no if this year it's just too much. It's
Yeah.
really, really okay.
Yeah. And I think too, what just the first 3 points, um, this grief is something you carry like your companion, right? It's like the one thing that never makes you alone, but it's the one thing that makes you feel the most alone. Um, and even just, this year, not with my grief, I mean, my grief's always there, but for other reasons, this year's been really hard for me and the holidays have been really difficult. And, I've given up on a lot of that image of what family looks like, right? So, yeah, the tree thing, exactly. I went to the local supermarket by myself, picked out a tree, the one that I wanted, had somebody
Hmm.
help me, another woman help me put it in the car, came home, put it up by myself, decorated it, did all of that. And even though it feels like a very lonely thing, your grief, it's with you. But then it's like, I could think about my girls and then I could decorate the tree with the ornaments that I personally made for them.
Hmm.
And for all the other lost babies that, I've just learned to have those relationships with their parents, and they're on my tree. And I could take those moments of my grief and um, really just use that as strength, that I can do all
Hmm.
of this. Like there isn't, um, it doesn't have to look any certain way. It just has to be the way that you want to do it from now on, right? And it could look
Yeah.
so different than what you used to have it be like. But I'm telling you, the when you embrace it the way that you feel now and where you're at, it opens up like a whole new, once you let
Hmm.
go of how it's supposed to look and you actually do what you feel best with. I don't know, there's a
Yeah.
whole new opening, and you can
Hmm.
just really sit there and just love on your baby in
Hmm.
the way that's best for you. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're right. And just saying no when you're not surrounded by maybe the people or the community that are supporting you through that grief, who really are acknowledging that. If they're not doing that, they might not be the right people to spend those days with. So
Yeah.
just really find your people that accept you and your grief, um,
Mhm.
and just embrace you and love you and support you. Like that's what the holidays are for. It's for love and
Yeah.
joy. And if you're not feeling that with the people that you're with, they're just not the people that you need to be with at this time where you are just
Mhm.
really healing from that grief. So
Yeah.
yeah, the no
Yeah.
is huge.
I mean, that's a really, really good point, is that there may be people around you who are invalidating to your grief.
Yeah.
You know, there may be people around you who do not understand and who really want you to just put on like that happy face for the holidays. And
Mhm.
it's okay to back away from those things, even if you love those people.
Yeah.
And it's not about like, disconnecting from them totally. It's okay to back away for now, to
Mhm.
honor what is the reality that you are
Yeah.
experiencing right now.
Yeah.
So, honoring your grief might mean temporarily backing away
Yes.
from people who don't get it and who are
Yes.
not supportive.
Yes.
And, it doesn't mean they're horrible people. It doesn't mean like, you're cutting them off or anything like that. But it might just mean like, you know what, I don't think that this is really going to be best for me right now.
Yeah.
And being okay with saying no.
Yeah.
And, it can be hard, it can be tricky. People have a lot of expectations, but again, they will survive a temporary disappointment while you are dealing with the death of your child.
Yeah.
And, so you have to be the one who is aware of where you are today because it could change.
Mhm.
Tomorrow you might feel differently.
Mhm.
And yeah, and you have to be the one to say, you know what, I'm going to advocate for myself. I'm going to love and be kind to myself,
Yeah.
and kind of make sure that I get what I need right now because I'm the one who's in need right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, give yourself permission to do that. A lot of
Yeah.
times we might think, oh my gosh, it's so selfish. Maybe I can just suck it up. Maybe you can just suck it up. Maybe you'll decide that that's is going to get you through best. Maybe it's, conflict is not worth it.
Mhm.
Fine. You decide whatever is best for you and
Yeah.
then walk into that. But give
Mhm.
yourself permission to back away too, if
Mhm.
that's what's going to be best for you, because it
Yeah.
really, really is okay.
Yeah. 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 And
Yeah.
it's okay
And
to go, like you said, go to these events and say, like physically bring your grief and say, hey, I am bringing my grief today, and it's going to
mhm,
be at this table, and we're going to make room for it. And I'm an
mhm,
advocate for myself and that grief,
mhm,
my child, and I
mhm,
want gifts for my child, you're okay to say, hey,
Hmm.
these are the needs I need to be met in order for me to be able
Yeah.
to be at this event. And just
Hmm.
say, this
Yeah.
is, I'll come, but here's what we're going to do. Here's what I
Yeah.
need to feel supported and
Yeah.
loved. Because you know what? I acknowledge the fact that maybe you don't know because you haven't been through
Hmm.
this and you don't know what I'm looking for
Right.
on this day and how best you can honor my child. But
Hmm.
maybe being bold and saying, here's what it is. And if that's
Hmm.
something you don't think you can do, then I can't be there. But if you can, I'll show up. But know
Yeah.
that that's how I'm coming. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's like, it's such a good point that, people who have not been through it, like, let's be really honest, like, our culture does not deal with death overall
No,
well. Like, we
no,
do not teach one another
no.
how to be supportive and kind and loving in these experiences. Most of the time, deaths that we acknowledge are those of older people, you
Yes.
know, and will acknowledge the death even of younger people. It's a tragedy. We're so sorry. We have rituals around that, like funerals and, memorial services and things. Sometimes we have walks, for different causes, breast cancer, lymphoma, whatever it is. Like, we have some ways that we have figured out, like, how to join in the grief of other people,
Yeah.
but we're not good at it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, our family members, especially when it comes to something like a pregnancy loss, that is what's called a disenfranchised grief. It's a grief that other people don't acknowledge. They don't know how to. It's a
Yeah.
silent, secret, hidden grief. And
Yeah.
so this kind of law are not well versed in. Even with
No.
as many people who have lost babies, we as a culture have not trained ourselves how to comfort one another. So it's a really good point that we can maybe prepare the people that we are going to spend time with for how to best care for us. It
Yes.
really sucks. And it shouldn't be that the grieving person has to be an educator on grief. And so I really suggest, like, to clients, that they keep it brief and leave the responsibility being able to say, hey, I know I'm invited to Christmas dinner this year. I just want you to know I'm still really hurting from my loss. I'm probably not going to be, my normal self. Are you okay with me coming and, having whatever experience I'm going to have? So
Yeah.
that's one thing you could say. You could also say, thank you for thinking of me. I would love to be there. I can't be there this year because of the grief that
Yeah.
I'm feeling. I think it would probably make you and your other guests uncomfortable, and I don't need to be at the center of other people's discomfort right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
take care of me and back away. But hey, let's get together, just you and I, sometime in the next couple of weeks, because I would love
Yeah.
to see you and I appreciate the invitation,
Yeah.
And so you're able to advocate for yourself that way, either accepting an invitation with the caveat of, just so you're aware. And maybe the other person is going to be like, you know what? I was expecting that. It's just going to be your family, my family. I'm not inviting anybody else. I just want to be with
Mm.
you. Just come and be how you are.
Yeah.
That could be wonderful.
Could
Or
surprise
they
you.
might say,
Yeah.
you know what? Yeah, they could surprise you. Or they might say, you know what? Thank you for letting me know. Please take care of yourself. And yes, let's get together on at this time because I want to see you. You're important to me. Even if this party isn't the time for it, I still want to
Yeah.
be with you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like being able to advocate for yourself in that way is important. And that actually leads into like the fourth point from this article, which is to schedule time for self care, rest, and reflection.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this busy season, there's a lot of times when we can just get into the rush, 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 rush of the holiday. And what can happen then is that emotions and things inside of us build up unnoticed until suddenly they start breaking out, maybe in anger, maybe in
Yeah.
like frustration, maybe in like a sudden, emotional breakdown at a time that we weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
So, scheduling into not only the weeks of the holiday, but even events where okay, I'm going to Christmas dinner. It's probably going to be hanging out for an hour, having dinner, then like gifts and presents. I think at the end of dinner, I'm just going to go and excuse myself for 20 minutes and just sit quietly.
Yeah.
And so like being mindful of like, coming up with a code word with your partner of like, if you find that it's too much, you
Yeah.
just need to go,
Yeah.
just having that code word of I'm feeling really tired. And then your partner knows that's the code word, time to go,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
they can help kind of extricate you from the event,
Yeah.
like building into your plans a few quiet minutes. A lot of people travel for the holidays. What if you're going to be at someone's home?
Mm.
How are you going to take care of yourself in somebody else's house?
Yeah.
So thinking ahead about that. And, are we going to tell them, hey, we're going to dinner on Friday
Hmm.
night together so that that you have time where y'all can drive out, have dinner, and go sit in a dark park
Yeah.
somewhere, in the parking lot and just be together and breathe, or be by yourself and breathe,
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
that's what you need.
Yeah.
But remembering to build into whatever your events are little breaks, time for yourself, time to grab a cup of tea and go sit quietly in your room for a half hour
Yeah.
where you can just feel and kind of check in, and whatever's
Yeah.
happening for you, you're zoning in on that and you are acknowledging it, that this is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on it, but the fifth point that the article makes is to ask for help. And
Mm.
this is a really good time to kind of leverage your support network. So if you're going through this super busy week and you're feeling overwhelmed, reach out and say, "Hey, would anybody be willing to pick this up from the store for me?
Yeah.
Would anybody be willing to bring over a meal on this night? We're just going to be so busy that I don't think I'm going to have time to cook. Would anybody be willing to take the kids for 2 hours
Hmm.
so that I can do whatever it is that you need to do?
Yeah.
Sit, wrap, shop, whatever
Yeah.
it is that you need to do for
Yeah.
those 2 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just taking advantage of the people who you can depend on and who will be
Yeah.
there for you if
Yeah.
they know that you have a need.
Yeah.
Being willing to ask um, when you have an issue.
Yeah.
Um, so the sixth point for this article is to embrace joy.
Mm.
Holidays can often be awesome. That's why we celebrate them every year, right? We have an idea of kind of how we want the holiday to go.
Yeah.
And it is a time for a lot of people that is really joyous and fun, and there's good things that happen. And if we're grieving, sometimes we feel guilty about having those moments of joy, having
Hmm.
those experiences that just make us feel light and wonderful. And
Yeah.
and when we do feel that, we might say to ourselves, how could I be feeling happy?
Mm.
How can I feel okay?
Yeah.
But just do it. Like this is life, you know. Life is that dialectic of pain and grief that
Hmm.
lives right alongside of pain and, sorrow and all of these things, right? So
Hmm.
we have all of this together, and that's what makes up life. So if you find yourself finding and experiencing those moments of joy, embrace them. Do not feel one moment's guilt
Hmm. Hmm.
for experiencing life and goodness in the middle of the pain that you're feeling.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, your
that's what
child,
healing is.
right? And your child
Mhm,
wants you to feel like they're your heart. Like they want you to experience joy. And if it's thinking of them or having a moment where you just feel like things are just little gifts, like just take them because there's so few and
mhm,
um there's no guilt there. Like just set in your heart that when you feel that joy, that's from them. Like that's their gift to you.
mhm.
So embrace it and connect with
Absolutely.
them. So
Yeah.
yeah, no guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. And that actually is the last point of this article, is to remember your baby.
Mm. Yeah.
So, Rachel, you had said that when you went and got your tree, like you were able to spend that time like putting meaningful decorations on your tree that helped you
Yeah.
to remember your baby and other babies. And
Yeah.
it helped you to connect to your children, and it helped you to
Yeah.
connect to the wider lost community because you were
Yes.
remembering other babies and other people who have been through this kind of experience.
Yeah.
So, be intentional in your
Yeah.
holidays
Yes.
to include your child in your celebrations.
Yeah.
You do not have to hide your baby away.
No,
Every year,
never.
when my family decorates the tree, we take out my son Andrel's um, creche, nativity creche that we have, and we put it up on, and that is Andrel's nativity. And we put it up
Mm-hmm.
every year and we think about him and
Mm-hmm.
how he continues to be a part. Then we put his ornament on the tree. We put my eldest child, Callan's ornament on the tree, and they sit there on the tree alongside all of the living children, their ornaments that go onto the tree.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, being intentional to create um, times of celebration and memory for your child is really important as well.
Yeah.
And when you do that intentionally, you are opening up moments of love and loss
Mm-hmm.
all at the same time. And by connecting with that, you continue to connect with your baby and you
Yeah.
take your baby. This we've talked about this in other videos, but the relationship with your child doesn't end just because the child is no longer living.
Mm-mm.
You
Mm-mm.
continue to have a relationship with them all through the years, all through
Yeah.
time. You will continue to be their parent. And so, in finding ways to include them in your holiday celebrations um, honors their place in your family. It honors your loss and your grief and your love, um, which ultimately is what grief is, right? It's
It is.
love frustrated.
Yeah.
So, so finding ways to include your child in your celebration in ways that feels affirming, natural, and positive is a great thing to do. You can begin anytime if you've had 3 Christmases since your baby died and you haven't done it, it's okay. Begin this year. You can
Yeah.
start this year and include your baby in
Yeah.
your celebrations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I
Yes.
definitely recommend that anybody who's watching the video go look at this article at What's Your Grief. They have extra resources there, other things to consider,
Mm.
links to other articles. So I think it's like a great resource for anybody who's grieving this season.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been great. And I think it'll be so uplifting, and just really help support the community through this holiday season. And we're always here. So you just let us know, email us. You can connect with us on our website, on Facebook. We're here for you. If you're having a rough time, we love to love on you as much as possible. So thank you guys. We wish you a gentle holiday season, a happy new year. We look forward to seeing you in January on our next video. So thank you for joining us.